How's it going, everybody? My name's Carpo, and this video is going to fall in line somewhat with my FDA and pharmaceutical videos, and people may notice I've been talking about these things a bit lately, but I wanted to kind of give an idea of where I'm coming from and why I think this is such an important issue. It's been on my mind a lot lately, especially since 2016. And a lot of people know, a lot of my subscribers know that I've been a kratom vendor for a while. So as far as that leaning into why I've been so, opposed to pharma, that's not really the only reason. It was something that kind of triggered a response in me that I felt that these things were urgent and needed to be discussed for the sake of all of us. Because I believe in a free market, and I believe there should be competition in that market. But when competition is squashed, when it comes to things that are, quality of life issues like medical devices or treatments or medications, and when these things are looked at merely for an extreme profit at the cost of the consumer and the taxpayer, I feel it just has to be called out. Now, first of all, I'm hoping I can make this video short. I've only got like 10 minutes of space left on my camera, and that's good because that'll limit the amount of time I spend on this, because I have a lot of information to share. But this isn't something I'm completely prepared for yet. Now, I have a book I'm working on. Now, I'm already 18 pages in. I've been working on this for about the last, close to a year now, maybe 8 months. And there's a lot of information I've gone through. It's everything from the birth of pharma, all the way up to the graphs and charts. What can we do about it? What is the evidence that they're actually, working merely for profit and that they're funded by the taxpayers? And this is the thing a lot of people don't realize. If there was a private company, like a startup, a pharmaceutical firm, and they invented their own molecule and they want to sell that molecule, that's part of the free market. When your tax dollars go to fund these companies and to fund discovery and research into these substances, and then they're marked up, and then years later marked up 10 times that, there's something wrong with the system. And all of us are suffering because of it. Eventually I'm going to publish this as an ebook. I'm not done, not nearly done, but I'm getting close. I have, if anybody wants a copy, it'll be available when I'm finished. But if anybody wants a copy of this now, I'm giving it free to my Patreon, supporters, because it's a thank you. Because I'll give you any of the writings and studies that I've done on any subject, because I really appreciate it. Because I do want to grow this into something, and the more time I can spend researching, the more the more information I can provide. Greed kills people. And we're in a situation now where greed is killing people when it doesn't have to. We're being overcharged for drugs that were discovered by our own tax dollars decades ago. And I have many notes, but I can't really sit here and go through them all, obviously. But when I watched that documentary the other day about medical devices, it was just something I'd left out of the whole equation. Found out that medical device companies paid doctors $2 billion, with a B, in the year 2016 alone. And, there was these, for example, they talked about these medical implants that they knew, could cause problems, but they did it anyway. And in a nutshell, they ended up getting $300 million in lawsuits, but they made $650 billion in profits. 300 million in lawsuits compared to 650 billion, that's what, 2,000 times, profit. They don't care. They have enough money to pay off people. So if the studies don't go their way, if people have adverse reactions, it's kind of our own fault, oh well. And we become the guinea pigs for these things. And it's really absurd. There was even a situation recently where, all these doctors spoke out against, I believe it was Essure or one of these medical devices. The FDA actually used a spyware called Spectre to input on the computers of these doctors and to spy and take screenshots every 2 seconds. It's absurd to think that money is going to fund these things, to spy on doctors. Interestingly enough, all 9 of the doctors were fired within 2 years. Therefore, if somebody who has clout speaks out for these things, then they get targeted. And I think this is what I wanted to make a main point of first, is that that's why it's important that people like you and I do it. What do we have to lose? I mean, life is hard enough already, but without getting, you know, harassed by government agencies because you're speaking out for your own health as an advocate for other people or yourself. It's just really, you know, it's a serious problem right now. One of the interesting things is that whenever there's an issue with people who are harmed by a drug or by a device, they're willing to speak out, but the FDA is never willing to go on camera. The pharmaceutical lobbyists and their representatives are never willing to go on camera. And we're talking about huge companies. They don't care what their reputation looks like. What matters to them is the bottom line. Shareholders. The shareholders are part of the problem because, you know, if they don't understand what the company is doing, you know, can you blame people? You know, they invest in something, they see numbers, they see a stock exchange, they don't really care. And people need to care more because people are dying. The interesting thing is that these drugs are funded, research is funded by us, a lot of it anyway. Then it's turned over to these drug companies, then they make a hefty profit, don't pay the government back the amount that, you know, we spent researching it. Then on top of that, they charge our Medicare system billions of dollars every year, you know, for these drugs, which we should get at a discount at least through the Medicare system, if nowhere else. The private sector is different, and you know, people are confused about these issues, so they don't know what to do. They just figure a drug should cost this much, and that's just the way it is. Whenever something is, you know, banned from the market, all they do is reinvent the molecule and sell it under a different name for a different use, and there's really no oversight for that. It's pretty bad. We can't make informed decisions on what we're taking if we're not given the true information. And like back in the 80s, you know, when OxyContin and the Sackler family in Purdue, they had this drug that they knew was addictive and they knew it was dangerous. That's fine if they want to market it with those warnings, but they didn't. They made it seem like it was the be-all, end-all. And look what happened. So the fact that anybody still has trust in these agencies to protect us, you know, needs to rethink it. There was a drug out for a toxoplasmus. It was a toxoplasmus drug that was originally $13.50 per dose. And if you remember a few years back, the guy Martin Shkreli, he rose it up to $750 per pill. It's like a 5,000% increase. I mean, $13.50 to $750, and it's because nobody else makes it. They know they can profit, and they don't just want to charge 2 or 3 times what it costs, but, you know, 5,000% increase. There's a Concordia. They raised a medication, thyroid medication in the UK, because this isn't just in the US. They raised a thyroid medication price from 20 cents a pill to $12.40 a pill. And that ended up costing the UK taxpayers millions, if not billions, as well as the US. And everyone suffers because of this. But generally, other countries do pay a lot less for their medication, up to 10 times less for insulin medication. So, you know, a company like Merck, for example, they made $40 billion in the year 2017. They have like 69,000 employees. So how do you go up against a company that has that much when you're merely a small group of citizens who have a complaint about a drug? And what can we do about it? So, let's see how much time I got left. I'm not the editing type. Cool, I got a couple minutes. When I do the final video for this, I will end up probably reading this out loud, or at least a large portion of it, and I will use my other microphone and put on some, you know, some background pictures, because I know that this issue has to be spread, not just to, you know, it's like the government. When people say the government's out to get us and they're out to kill us, really everybody's out to make a profit, and the government just happens to be lobbied to. There are ways around this. There are ways to stop it. There should be caps on drug prices. There should be limits and paybacks to, if we're funding the research for something. My belief is that I'm more than willing for my tax dollars to go to fund the research of these drugs, as long as they are controlled by the citizens, because there's no excuse to raise the price of a drug that's 50 years old. I mean, these are things that are easily manufactured. It's pretty disgusting, and I'm not sure what to do about it. But I'm going to leave the video at that, since I'm about out of time. This is kind of maybe a preamble to the eventual finishing of this book, which I think will be a crucial addition to, you know, our war on on the right to have choices in our own health care, but more than that, the right to be informed and the right to be able to afford medication. And you know, we're all advocates for each other. Just remember that. So take care, everybody. Have a good day, and take care of each other.